Hello and welcome. This is Thomas. My pronouns are he and him. Thank you for joining me. This podcast is recorded in Honolulu, Hawaii. I acknowledge that the unceded Aina, or land on which I live, called Kakako, is part of the larger territory recognized by Kanaka Maoli, or Indigenous Hawaiians. I'm honored, as is my husband, and we are grateful to be guests of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Although I felt it a bit nebulous, maybe even boring when I thought about sharing a conversation about challenge, I've landed on now seeing what its merits has been for me, and I'm going to trust it may well be that for you as well. During this podcast, I'll share some thoughts about the notion of challenge, challenging ourselves, being challenged by life, and what all of this actually really means. So let me invite you to think back to the last time you challenged yourself. Most likely, it involved leaving your comfort zone. There's a lot that falls under the umbrella of trying something new. For instance, maybe you ran an extra mile, you woke up earlier than usual, or you tried a new approach to solving a problem. It doesn't matter if it's a small challenge or a big challenge, one that takes a year to accomplish. Nonetheless, it can all still feel like it's a challenge. If you're on the road to self-improvement or personal growth, you need to know why and how to challenge yourself. And I thought it would be best, and this surprised me a little bit. I thought I'd look at kind of the definition of challenge, thinking it would all be sunshine and roses, and it actually isn't. So what actually does challenge mean? And here are the synonyms for challenge. Interesting, they're really not that pretty. The noun would be a problem, a difficult task, a test, or a trial. I don't think I'd pick up that plate if somebody said, that's what lies on it for you, challenge, a verb, and there's quite a few, this notion to disagree with, to dispute, to take issue with, to protest against, to call into question, to object to test, to tax, to strain, to make demands on, to stretch, stimulate, inspire, and excite. Now we're moving in a bit of a different direction. But before, stimulate, inspire, and excite, I just thought, yeah, that's kind of yucky, challenge. Because as you can see, it has some seriously negative connotations. What's a better word for something that stimulates, inspires, and excites? And I thought about interesting. What if we added interesting, not merely challenging, to the leveling up you're considering? Ultimately, interesting gives you challenging for free. And here's the bonus. If something's interesting, challenging will come along naturally. I'll happily sit through an hour-long lecture if I find it interesting. I'll get through that challenging book if and only if it's interesting. I'm motivated to get out of bed earlier in the morning when there's something interesting waiting for me to work on. But I'll hit this snooze button if my day, or if I even think my day, is filled with just challenges. So let's make interesting our first goal and intention to add to what a challenge might be for ourselves. Making it interesting. Why not? Life is too long to not have it be interesting. So if you've listened to previous podcasts that I've done, you know some of my challenges that have gotten in the way of life. Some of them have been really hard for me. Coming out, for instance, leaving my family of origin for 3 years to heal, saying goodbye to a family relationship that was toxic, accepting the loss of a friend of 35 years. All big challenges for me that were actually really hard. These are all examples of challenges that were not necessarily interesting. And this notion that challenge means you've stepped outside your comfort zone and actually taken on a new task. You've set some new intentions or goals for yourself, and you're actually ready to work a little bit diligently towards achieving them. A challenge is something that teaches you how to grow up and grow out or grow in to you as a person. And challenges encourage personal development, and they are a way to work on self-improvement. The challenges you take on really test a number of things in your life: resiliency, your grit, and your determination because, well, they're challenging. They aren't supposed to be easy, nor accomplished without some degree of effort. So challenging things to do might look different for you than it does for coworkers, siblings, friends, or family for that matter. And that's completely okay. Your challenges could seem like little things, like trying to wake up earlier, shake a bad habit that you've deemed no longer working for you, but they're still challenges. Everyone's experience is a little bit different. In fact, that's the beauty of a challenge. It opens you up to new experiences, and it has you put in the effort to improve yourself, perhaps every day. It lets you really focus on yourself, whether you're challenging yourself to declutter and stay organized, or for that matter, run a marathon. The challenges you set for yourself to overcome clearly are entirely your own. So why would we, or why should we consider challenging ourselves? Because new challenges can be scary. They can push you outside your comfort zone. And you don't know if letting go of old mindsets or heart sets and habits will actually improve your personal development. We don't really know that. But while it's daunting to take on new intentions or goals, I think here's the rub for us in relation to this. We think that they can actually lead to actually new opportunities for ourselves. So why do people enjoy a challenge? Those first four that I mentioned at the top of the podcast were not enjoyable challenges for me. But ultimately, I think the enjoyment comes from these things. Challenges help you discover new skills, jump into new experiences. They certainly have boosted my well-being, so they could boost yours as well. And ultimately, for the moments in my life where I felt stuck, by embracing a new challenge, I created an opportunity for myself to grow. So new challenges can give you the confidence boost you need and encourage you to push further with this notion of personal growth. And I think challenges also make you think a little bit harder. They can demand focus too. I bumped into some research and found that mentally challenging yourself actually stimulates brain function and helps to curb anxiety and depression. And those being probably a couple of the largest maladies that we face in today's world, this notion of taking on a challenge to help curb that, I think, is actually quite noble. Doing something different that requires focus and effort, it actually invites you to learn something new, gain a new perspective. And here's the one that I like most. It can kind of shake up your routine. Imagine your life if you didn't challenge yourself, like at all. You would wake up every day and ignore any new opportunities that actually came your way. You wouldn't seize any chance to improve your skills, to grow, find a new job that might make you happier, or try even a new hobby. How daunting is that, huh? So this notion of challenge actually, I think, is a good fit for us. So how, and this might seem silly, I'm going to share with you how to challenge yourself. Once you've considered that you're actually going to challenge yourself, consider where to start. Challenges certainly come in all kinds of different sizes, styles, and they can fit into different categories in your life. They can impact your personal life, your professional career, or both at the same time. Your physical well-being and your financial well-being, your emotional well-being, and I'll add your social well-being are actually rich with challenges. And I think there's a bonus when you're taking on challenges that all of these areas may benefit, not simply just one. So if you're having trouble thinking of ways to challenge yourself, an excellent strategy, I think, is to break down your goals or even your intentions even into different parts of your life. Take a look at how a few challenges divided into personal, professional, and even well-being or fitness categories might help you. Let me share a few with you. I'll start with personal. And these are simply mine. You'll take them or toss them out or add more that are yours. This notion of giving your mental health some degree of prioritization. So to prioritize your mental health more actually as a challenge. In the midst of having a lot going on, it can be easy to not take care of yourself. Easy to forget to take care of yourself. So choosing to value your well-being and letting go of things that actually hurt you can actually be a big challenge. And remember, personal growth takes time, but you'll see the benefits in your everyday life once you actually start to practice, challenge yourself with more self-care. This can actually look like and help you manage stress better, getting a good night's sleep, or even knowing when to say no. The second one is this, and this may seem a little silly, but gosh, when I've done it, and not just once, it's actually really amazing the impact it's had on a bunch of different areas in my life. So bear with me a second here. It's this notion of downsizing your closet. And like I said, this might seem a little bit silly, but here we go. When was the last time you looked over your clothes? If you have, like I had, many items in your closet that you actually haven't worn for years, what would it be like to take time to free up some space, to get rid of clothes that don't fit or no longer match your taste? A long time ago, I had a client from a coaching perspective say to me they wanted to make room for a new relationship in their life and they were really struggling. And I said to them, can you tell me what your front closet looks like? How many coats do you have hanging in your closet? And they said, oh, I have so many coats in my closet. I said, if you wanted a new coat right now, what would be the only thing you could do if you were to bring in a new coat into your life? And they kind of mused a little bit and probably thought I was a little bit wacky, but they eventually ended on, I have to kind of let go of or get rid of some of those coats. There was silence between the two of us, and I'm pretty good at not filling that silence with anything, particularly when I'm coaching. But I love that they landed on this notion of, if I made room, if I took some coats out of the closet, there actually would be room for a new coat to show up. So imagine that. There's something that you want in your life, whatever it might be, you may not be making room for it. So once, from a clothing perspective, once you have a pile that you're actually ready to part with, donate them, send them to a local shelter. That's not actually really the point. This notion of decluttering your space will actually declutter your mind. It'll declutter your heart. And it can help you identify your personal style, but it can make room for something that you actually want to come into your life. I think that's a great challenge. Here's a third one, this idea of improving your memory. It might be a challenge to remember what went, or I've done this a few times. I've gone to the store. I didn't have my list like mom told me to have. I couldn't remember what it is that I needed. So this idea, it might be a challenge to remember what you want when you went to the grocery store, or maybe you want to excel at your job if only you actually had a bit of a better memory. So improving your memory takes time, and you won't see results overnight, but it's still possible to improve. Things like drawing have been found to benefit your working memory and actually improve it over time. You could also try downloading some apps on your phone to help you with this challenge. So improving your memory, downsizing your closet, and prioritizing your mental health in the personal area. And again, there could be more for you, but those are just three I'd like to offer up as ways to kind of challenge yourself. Let's move into a professional mode, just a couple here. One would be to take a class to learn something new. New classes could help your professional career by actually teaching you new skills and getting you qualified in more areas of your industry, if you will. You could learn a new language that helps you with your job, or that new language would be just something that you've always wanted to learn. A second one in the professional realm, and I know that I've done this and have found great value for it and from it, is this notion of finding a mentor. Everyone gets a little lost and confused from time to time. Hello, present company. If you're feeling this way, right, in your job, a mentor could be the person who shares their wisdom with you. They certainly can answer your questions. They could actually ask you some really great questions. They could inspire you to learn new skills or even give you a sense of comfort within your current line of work. Your mentor could also teach you about self-motivation, how to sustain it for your future career endeavors. It can be challenging to initiate your mentorship and find someone who fits your needs, but there's no question the pros of a mentor-mentee relationship certainly outweigh the difficulty it might be in establishing that for yourself. So finally, let's jump to well-being, perhaps the fitness role or realm that you may relate to a little bit better than well-being. This is one that is really challenging for me. But as I embark upon it, it's a really great challenge. It's this notion of becoming more flexible. And flexibility on the physical realm has everything to do with being more flexible in other areas of my life, in relationships especially. So flexibility is a fitness challenge that actually everyone could do. And we often actually forget about it. Stretching each day is a good habit as it helps your body alleviate tension. And of course, if you're doing other physical challenges, it's actually really good to cool down as well. If you're a pet owner, if you're a pet lover, dog, cat, particularly cat, what's the first thing that curled up cat does once it begins to move? What's the first thing it does? Or what do you see your dog do? Haven't we called it a downward dog in yoga? They stretch. They stretch before they begin to move. A little bit of wisdom, right, in the animal kingdom that I think we as human beings can learn from. And then finally, kind of the buzz of 10,000 steps, right? Think of, are there parks nearby you that you'd like to explore? Challenge yourself to go for a long walk that encompasses 10,000 steps is a pretty cool commitment. And it can actually be pretty rewarding. Studies have found that walking improves mood, boosts brain power, and ultimately helps your physical health. Plus, this new habit could help you actually meet some new folks as you venture to try new places or provide some inspiration for your creative pursuits, walking 10,000 steps a day. So let me throw in some final thoughts here. And it is this. These challenges aren't something that everyone will look at. I'm not expecting you to look at all these challenges and actually feel like jumping in right away. But I think that's part of the challenge itself. As you learn that personal growth starts outside of your comfort zone, you'll be more inclined to learn how to actually challenge yourself. And remember, to make sure that the challenge is interesting, challenge for the sake of challenge is a tad mundane. And I shared the challenges that were without interest for me, without the energy of interesting. Here's some of the challenges that in my life were peppered with the energy of interesting, ones that I actually chose. For 6 years, I flew back and forth between Vancouver, British Columbia, and Honolulu, Hawaii. And of course, I did that for love. A lot of folks said to me, oh, that must be really difficult. And I would say to them, it's not. It's not because my soon-to-be husband at that time, we never argued that we were supposed to be in any other place than me in Vancouver and he in Honolulu. So the interest was obviously growing in love, but more importantly, it was this idea that it was actually fun to fly back and forth for those 6 years. And then eventually, the challenge of moving from Canada to the United States, from Vancouver to Honolulu, was really interesting for me. Sure, there were times it was uncomfortable. Yeah, there were times it was a little bit scary. But ultimately, that challenge peppered with me choosing to see it as interesting was actually really life-changing. I recently went back to school, right? I went back as an adult learner to school. And what was interesting about that was it was peppered with this idea of, I think this new modality of coaching that I'm learning about will help me support clients in a way that I bumped into a bit of a glass ceiling with the integrative work that I was doing. So now I have both. So the interest in going back to school and peppering it with the energy of interesting was really lots of fun. And then finally, in this one, you'll get right away, is how interesting it was and how challenging it was for me to write and publish my memoir, right? Little Fag, A Journey of Self-Acceptance and Healing. Because I chose not to see that as daunting. Oh, sure, it kicked up lots of dust for me. But because I peppered it with the energy of interesting, it, to say the most, has been life-changing for me. And ultimately, I've heard from folks that it's been life-changing for them. So the positive thing is that you don't have to do all of these self-improvement challenges at the same time. That would be ridiculous. The invitation is for you to pace yourself, to be proud of your accomplishments. And I thought of, if I had sat in front of somebody long ago as I began to embrace the notion of challenge, what would I have wanted them to tell me? And here are 5 things that I'm going to share with you that I would have loved to have had somebody share them with me at the time I was being most challenged in my life. And the first is this: accept what you judge as a failure, right? Accept your failures, but don't let them dictate your next move. Don't let them stop you from not moving. The second, look for inspiration to kind of help you keep your momentum around a challenge. Somebody in your life has have walked through a challenge. Maybe ask a few of those folks that are important to you. They may be an inspiration for you. And ultimately, this notion of not being impatient. As you take on this challenge, as you embed a challenge in your goals or intentions, take a breath and be patient. What I often think to myself, I taught a course at a medical school in Calgary a long, long time ago. And I realized that these students I was working with were going to be doctors. And some of them were really impatient. And I would say to them with a little bit of wise counsel, doctors aren't doctors overnight. So this notion of being impatient with your goals or intentions, that you're wrapped in a challenge, let it go if you will, inviting you to be really patient with this movement you've created for yourself. The fourth would be this idea of learn to love learning. It can embed, and it can, if you embed it into these challenges you create for yourself, that you love this notion of learning. My husband, Adam, is just really incensed in a good way with learning. It's a great inspiration for me. I found a new value for learning. So learn to love learning. And finally, the fifth would be this: be present and appreciate this journey that you've actually created for yourself with this challenge that is interesting for you. Be present. Because if you futurize it without actually being present to what's going on, or if you grab something from your past that you think will pepper your experience of this challenge wanting to change, it's not going to work. When we pull from the past, we simply get more of the past. So be present and appreciate your journey. So when it's your time, when that challenge comes up, inviting you to step up to your next level of learning and growth. It's really the cosmic setup for yourself. That's really what you're up to. You're setting yourself up. What is this notion? Oh, leveling up. That's it. That you are actually leveling yourself up. More learning and more growth. And ultimately, make the leap into the unknown. You'll actually have more of a safety net than you actually think you do. And finally, let me close with this. I found this, Tim Cook, Apple CEO, said this: when your time comes, and it will, you'll never be ready, but you're not supposed to be. Find the hope in the unexpected. Find the courage in the challenge. Find your vision on the solitary road. Remember, interesting makes for the best challenges. Thank you for spending time with me. It's always helpful to have you rate, review, and share my podcasts with family and friends, along with subscribing to Conversations with Thomas, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I've said this, and I say it in every podcast, I'm a huge proponent of taking charge of your mental health. And that means seeking advice from professional therapists, counselors, psychologists, physicians, and other qualified professionals. These conversations that I've created are meant to help you find a place of inquiry, a bit of a jumping off point, if you will. Yet if you're experiencing ongoing mental challenges, I really want to encourage you, please seek support from a licensed professional. I've not intended that anything I share is a replacement for the advice you're getting from that professional in your life. No, not for a moment. Most of what I share as subject matter on this podcast is usually sourced from extraordinary insights, from friends, from family, ultimately things I bump into on my daily walk along life's path. And I pepper all of them with a healthy dose of research. Conversations is executive produced by me, Thomas Cavadolan. It's also executive produced by my purveyor of all things techie, my amazing husband, Adam Moe. And I'd love to hear from you. Please email me at conversationswt@gmail.com. Conversations, the W is with, the T is Thomas. Conversationswt@gmail.com. I'd love to read your feedback on my episodes. hear your suggestions for future conversations with Thomas. And if you're comfortable sharing the impact of these episodes, I'd be honored to hold space with you. Thank you.